that feminine yearning is so eternal. What I'm recognizing is that is an inherent part of who we are. We will always want more. Whether you are in a relationship, you will want more. Whether you're single, you will want more. And it's like that Aset, she was like searching for more, for wholeness, but that wholeness is her wholeness with God.
Absolutely.
You know, and to see your divine partner as God in human form. And her completing him was like her completing her devotion to the divine. And like us healing each other is us making ourselves back into God.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the feminine is, I always like to take these concepts and I really relate them back into like my life and the lives that we see. And like, I see it as the feminine, we are healers. And I see a lot of us were like, why do I always have to be the healer in my relationship? And it's like, there's a balance of like, we're not meant to be like the sole healer in our relationships, and the feminine is healing. And like, especially right now, I see the masculine is hurting. The masculine is very fragmented. Their lingams are very far lost in the catfish, you know, like just so much of just like confusion and porn addiction and, you know, the societal pressures and all of these things that like, that's what the feminine we're here to do. We're like here to help restore also the masculine of their divinity, remind them of their divinity, remind them of their kingdom. I feel the feminine, we have really risen and remembered in the past few decades. And now it's like, let's shine that light back on the men of like, you also are a pharaoh. It's time to step into that. And what I also loved and was receiving in these temples, it was always like the queen and the king side by side.
Absolutely.
And it was never one ruling over the other, side by side. And just the beauty of you can go so much further in that sacred partnership, but also she and he are whole on their own, you know, and it's not a just, it's an and also seeing the children as well. Like a lot of these depictions had the children that they would birth through and their stories. And, you know, I've questioned in my journey of like, do I want to have kids? Do I not? And at that time, you know, after the divorce, I was like, I don't think I ever want to have kids. And I would see these hieroglyphics. I'm like, oh, it's such a meaning of life. And I know you had that, you know, because you had your son when you were 40.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. He came in a vision. I wasn't going to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
He came in a vision and over my husband and I in a ceremony. And we went to Egypt to make offerings to ask. And it became very clear that we were meant to carry it forward. And that's very much about it too, is, you know, I find when we do the healing work, it's so that we take care of something so it doesn't get passed on. Yeah. You know, because the way that I see it and the way I've been taught is we're borrowing the future from the children right now. Every choice that we make right now, everything we do right now sends a rippling effect into their lives, into the world that's theirs, you know? And I feel like if anything, that's one reason in and of itself to do the transformational work on behalf of our descendants, whether you choose to have a child or not. But part of, you know, when my son's spirit, Orion, came over us, I was also in Kemet, Egypt, noticing all of the images of the children and the babies. And that is why, in a way, most of us are here, is to pass it forward. So what are we going to pass forward? You know, I'm really in great support of ancestral healing work, ancestral medicine work. And this is very much connected to the teachings of Aset and Isis, is really doing the healing work on a profound level so that we actually pass forward blessings to our children. So they carry those blessings moving forward because they're the ones that are going to be tending to what we're borrowing from. You know, Aset is considered to be the mother, the great mother. So when people tune into her, I like to think that, you know, she's bringing forward the blessings of the great mother, teachings of the great mother, and the lineage of the great mother. You know, what is like actually the one being that is accepted by indigenous and communities all over the world is really Mother Mary, the Holy Mother. And oftentimes in our hardest challenges, when we are like facing the darkest moments, calling upon the grace of the Holy Mother can assist us. Oftentimes when Aset or Isis comes to bring forward that pure, unconditional, all-encompassing frequency of love to just nourish the heart, the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where when we connect to these Netedu, they can help us that way, call upon these principles. And that feeling of longing, the feeling of longing, I feel, is connected to the feeling of communion. You know, in the Western world, it's like more stuff, you know, like gather this and this and this, and progress at the cost of all things living, where we're moving so fast with this sometimes extractive consciousness that things are dying behind us. But we got to get to this and that and more and more and more, you know? And what I love about these teachings is the feeling of longing is connected to the feeling of communion. Communion with the sacred, a sacred way of life, whatever term you use, God, creator. And that's so much about what she represents, that communion with a sacred way of life and the preciousness of life. Every choice that we make now, every day, sends a rippling effect. So what kind of ripple are we going to make?
And whenever I'm feeling that yearning of like, you know, when you have that like just little bit of anxiety within yourself or a little bit of loneliness or something, and I like sit with it and I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, I want to feel God, you know, I want to feel my fullness.